Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk, where, I get guests on that I don't really know, which makes it a little bit more interesting for me, at least, because I don't know exactly their whole story. And that's how it is with my guest tonight. I'm going to let her introduce herself. I'm going to pull her in, and then we're going to get right started to the nitty gritty. I hope it works. Let's see. Come on. Where's it at? There we go. Yes,
Hey,
there we have her. There we have it.
how's
Okay.
it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. How are you doing?
Good, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on my little pod, my little Instagram live. Um, I appreciate you. It's one of those things where I got you because I interviewed someone that you know, and always at the end
Taylor, yep.
I ask who would be a good fit for this, and then your name came up, so that's why you're here today.
Yeah, any recommendation by Taylor I take.
Okay, let's
I
roll
take with some
in.
pride. So yeah.
Good, good. So, can you introduce yourself really quick, and then we're going to get started?
Oh, am I introducing myself here?
Yes,
Oh,
please.
okay. So my name is Mehryn Kraker. I um, grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I played college ball at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay. I was drafted 27th overall, maybe, by the Washington Mystics.
Hmm.
And then went to Spain for a couple of years and played and took some time off, as you mentioned before.
Don't
Um,
give it away yet.
I won't. And then, well, I will give away that I'm now still playing. So
Yes,
I
yeah,
found my way back. So
yes.
that's
That
kind of, and now I've been in the WNBL in Australia.
that's that's exactly what I want to get into in a minute. So we're going to start it off. We're going to go way back. We're going to kick it off with how you first started to play hoops.
In the probably as simple as I can put it in the backyard of my brothers and my dad,
Older brothers?
in the driveway. Two older brothers. Yep, I'm the youngest of four.
Yeah.
And so we just played a bunch. We were encouraged to play all sports growing up. My mom is a gymnastics coach. I trade, and so we all did that, but all got into other sports after that. And basketball kind of stuck, but I
Mhm.
played volleyball, softball, soccer all the way through committing to college, and going to college was when I started specialization. So
What?
basketball kind of stuck, but I wouldn't say I focused on it. And
Mm,
I know the game has grown so much that that's pushed a little earlier nowadays.
yeah. When when did you kind of know that you were going to be a hooper? Like when did you? Everybody has that feeling like, okay, this is my sport. This is when was it for you?
Mm, I would, I feel like I don't think this is me underselling myself, but I think I peaked very late.
Hmm.
So I think I would say that there was always signs, but I think when it clicked was probably going into my sophomore, junior year of high school, actually.
Hmm.
So it was pretty
Hmm.
late. But the signs were all there. I had good court awareness. I understood how to move the ball. I
Hmm.
adapted quickly, but I don't think it was something that until we actually fixed my shot, I don't think I had aspirations of college ball.
Really? So
Mm, yeah.
what was your when you were a sophomore in high school? What was your basketball goal? Just to
Mm,
keep playing or college?
I played. It was my second year of AU playing at
Uh,
that point. Um, that was when college basketball started to become on the radar.
hmm.
But even at that, I wasn't sure what division I would play at.
Hmm.
You know, I don't think that there was many women around our area. I shouldn't say, but I think looking up to women, there wasn't as many to see at that point in time.
Right.
Like now with social media and everything, you see how
Hmm.
many people can go play pro or how many people are playing college. But back when I was there, I think MySpace was still around, and I'm really dating myself now. But you know, I don't think you had that, yeah, that kind of person to look up to at that
Right.
point.
Right. I mean, there was the WNBA at that point, right? You're not that old.
Correct, but no, I'm not, I'm not that old, no. But I mean, we had what, I didn't have cable TV.
Mhm.
They weren't being shown on TV.
Right.
Um, internet, I feel like was still at the time where if I was home alone and on the computer, if my parents called, I had to quick get off the dial-up to get on the phone line, you know. So I feel like it's drastically
Right,
changed.
right. Okay, so I'm showing my age. I always say that I played back in the prehistoric game or prehistoric time of European basketball because when I came out it was 95, right? So there was like no internet, there was no
Yep.
iPhone, there was there was barely email, but I can remember writing handwritten mail
Yep.
back home, letters back home, and so I'm really old, uh, but yeah, times have changed. So as you know, things are looking up for women's basketball or women's sport in general. How do you receive that being an athlete yourself that now women's sports are being pushed more and invested in more?
Well, I think the argument initially, um, maybe to be uneducated, if
Mm-hmm.
that's the polite way to say it, was just people don't enjoy watching women's sports. It's boring.
Mm-hmm.
What are the comments that you hear? No dunks, the ball, everything's a little bit slower, that type of stuff. And I think what you're seeing right now is when women are given a platform and when you're invested in a little bit, it's just coming back tenfold. I mean, this year alone, I think you have more eyes on women's basketball at all
Right.
levels than you have ever.
Right.
And I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your college days real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What was your college career like? I mean, you got drafted, but when did you feel like while you were in college, when did you feel like, okay, I might be able to take this a little bit further than college?
I think the probably trend in my career has been like cyclical of getting somewhere, being totally unprepared, and then peaking really late. So I got okay at the end of high school, and then got to college and promptly was told that I wasn't good enough to play my freshman year. So I redshirted,
Yeah.
which in the Green Bay program, I would say like 75% of incoming girls, they redshirt.
Mhm.
Which is per norm for them, but to go home and tell everyone you're
Yeah.
not playing because
Yeah.
you're simply not good enough, it's quite a hit to the ego. My freshman, and then 2 weeks after I declared my redshirt, I tore my ACL and MCL.
Oh.
So there went my entire freshman year. But I was able to take that year, had some great trainers. My best friend, who's actually watching this right now,
Hi,
tore her
bestie.
ACL 2 weeks after I did. Yeah, Kaylee. And so we rehabbed together, and both of us started our first game back as
Good.
freshmen.
Good.
So from there, I think we were just trying to figure it out. I would say there's a little bit of luck that played into my career. I was okay. Freshman, sophomore, junior seasons, fine. I had to be on the scouting report, but I wasn't at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had one girl for sure transfer out of Green Bay, and and Kaylee graduated, and I was the only one left. So my senior year, I think there was no other choice, but I had to take on the scoring load and the leadership role. And I had a wonderful senior year and got drafted. So I think I peaked at the right time. I was thankful I was given an extra year. So yeah, I think you look back at my career and things happened for a certain reason.
Right.
I was the beneficiary of some lucky, I don't know. I think all sports career is a little bit of luck and chance.
Yeah.
Obviously, I worked hard,
Yeah,
but
of course.
yeah, it's not lost on me that I've had some things go my way.
So now I've heard very often stories about men talking about where they were when they got drafted, what they thought, but you don't hear that too much from women. Where were you when you got drafted, and what went through your mind when you got drafted, when you heard your name?
Yeah, so again, lucky. I had a couple coaches in our Horizon League tournament call our games. And then in the NCAA tournament, we had won my senior year and we made it to the NCAA tournament and they had called a couple games there as well. So I was able to kind of connect to some of that WNBA coaches initially, doing your pregame media stuff, meeting with them so that they had stuff to talk about on the broadcast. So I knew I had a chance, actually. And I had put together a pretty successful senior season. We were really well. We were ranked in the nation. So that helped a lot as well. So I knew that there was a chance I was going to be drafted. So our coaches, our players, and then a couple close friends and family were in our locker room with the draft watching. So we had like our little setup, and then afterwards, a couple of the Green Bay boosters had a restaurant rented out for us, so we went and celebrated
That's
there. And
dope.
people in the community could come and join. So it was it was a surreal event. I don't think it hit me when I saw my name flash up. And every year that draft happens, you kind of get those memories, and it's bittersweet. It's a really cool experience. The emotions flood back, but I can very much remember exactly where I was. Yeah.
Did you get a call on the phone from like a GM or something like that after your name had been called or something like
Immediately
that?
after, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do they say? Welcome to the team?
Welcome. Yep. The first one is welcome to the team. Excited to have you. You know, your typical welcoming, and then immediately, and for the women's side, you know, it moves so much faster. So immediately you start working with logistics. I had already signed to an agent at that point, as most of those women probably have. The second my season was done, I had signed.
Right.
And so he at the time started working on logistics of getting me out there. I'm pretty sure I flew out in like a week or something like that.
Let's talk about the selection of an agent, because that's a huge part of, especially your beginning of your career. And I do a lot with working. Is it working? Uh-oh. It's
Sorry,
working.
I just lost you for like
Okay.
a second or so. You said the selection of an agent.
Right, because that's a huge part of especially the early part of your career, the choice of agents. And I deal with very many players that are looking for agents and things like that, and I advise them on what to ask and that kind of stuff. Who helped you? What was your outlet for you to select an agent?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say there needs to be more questions asked in
Yeah,
general about the agent process,
yeah,
about overseas. I know Jory and Julie over in Wevolve are trying to help
yeah.
that, and I've been, paying attention to that and trying to get involved. I know you're a resource for that, but there are so many unanswered questions. And I think if you ask anyone that went overseas, anyone that's had one, two, I'm on my third agent. Um, I think everyone would tell you, like, I should have asked more questions. I had no idea. And obviously a lot of overseas basketball in general is trial by fire.
Right.
But I also would encourage college coaches to be more educated in the process as well. I
That's
think,
a good
like
point.
with mine, yeah, I also coach college, so I can attest to that. But I think a lot of these older coaches, and this is not a knock,
Yeah.
but just like I think that that's also part because you sell your program as a pathway to the pros in a lot of these. And I know a lot of them do have great connects, but I went with an agent that my coaches knew, and that was kind of the only one that was presented to me. It was a good recommendation. I signed immediately. I don't think I talked to anyone else.
Wow.
And for me, it moved so quickly. By the time we lost, I was already going down to the combine. And I wanted to make sure I was represented by the time I went down there. So I didn't have the luxury of taking, 2, 3, 4 weeks, couple months to figure out who I wanted to go with. So I went with the very first one. And he did great for me in the time. I just felt at some point I needed to move on. And so my second agent, I chose one that was Europe based, which I had really liked at that point too, because I wanted to have the personal relationship. I wanted them to be at the games and be able to advocate for me based on seeing me and me talking through what I wanted. And then after I stepped away, I broke it off with that agent. There was some things that happened, as I'm sure you are quite aware with most agents, that you really learn where your money is going and who's connected to what club and where they're sending you. And so I went with my agent that I currently have now, and I've been with her since I came back, and she is absolutely amazing. But my only advice to wrap this up is to ask as many questions to anyone that plays overseas, any connect you have, because I think like once all of us are over in Europe, like you're all on one team and you're all just trying to have the safest, best experiences possible. And knowledge is wealth. And over there, it's actually safety.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage people to ask as many questions. The dumber, the better. Who cares? You probably don't know there's so much that you don't know over there. So I just think that there's Wevolve right now, especially. There's such a place for it because it's desperately needed.
It really is. I mean, I deal with it on the daily, and I think the point that you had about the college coaches being educated a little bit more, I think that's a very underrated thought process, and as not that's not something that not everyone will think about, but it is true. I was lucky enough to have quite a few agents that were after me when I was coming out of school, and I was also lucky enough to have a coach that was very strong and understood the process. So he actually, I had him whittle it down to three, and then right after the season, they flew in. I met with them and made a decision. Um,
Yep.
but not everybody is afforded that luxury.
Mhm.
There's tens and thousands of players, men and women, that don't have an agent, that are trying to get over that, you know, things like that. And then sometimes you have to take what you can get. And I always say
Absolutely.
that you never know how good your agent is until you either get fired or you get hurt. That's when you know how good your agent is. The negotiating contracts, finding you a job, they do that every day.
Yeah.
But if you are hurt or fired, then you're going to find out pretty quick how good your agent is. And
That couldn't be more true.
yeah, it's really crazy. And I was unfortunate enough to have had both in my career, one time each. And I got hurt my very first year over, and my agent was fantastic. He handled everything. They came to the hospital the next day after my surgery, and with a contract, and I stayed there. Right. Um, then I got fired because I was the highest paid player on the team, and they needed a big guy, and I'm not a big guy, and it was like, okay, Sean, thank you, but we gotta save some money, and we need basically two players for your salary. Okay, but my agent did a great job. My what he got from me was way above what was normally paid. But okay, I was a good dude. I didn't cause any problems. There was
Which goes a
nothing like,
long way in Europe.
yeah, I was a good dude, professional, no problems with me. But that the agent thing is a huge thing, and more people need to ask more and more questions. And like you said, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you can think of it, ask. Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually probably familiar because you're stationed in Germany. So you're
Yes.
probably familiar with what happened to me while I was over there. But I've never been fired.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, I was waived from the WNBA, but I've never been fired. Luckily enough, I haven't really been injured to the point where my agents have needed to step in. But in Rhineland, in Germany, you heard about that, I'm
I heard
sure, because it
something.
was the first time
I've
it's ever
heard.
happened on the
Yeah.
women's side.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my agent was an absolute rock star and got me out of there as clean as possible. But it was an absolute mess of us not being paid and lied to and evicted from apartments because it wasn't being paid. And it was just
Crazy.
like, it just snowballed and they weren't releasing us. I had to keep playing games in order for them to release, and they wouldn't release me, and I was losing jobs from other teams. And it was actually a terrible situation. So she got me out of that as probably good as she possibly could have. And so I'll be indebted to her for a long time for that.
Who's your agent right now?
Jean McNulty King.
Don't know her. Okay. So
she's wonderful. So I guess that's my plug to her.
throw it in there. So let's talk about. I don't want you to have to go into too many details of what happened in Germany, but let's go. How long did you play before you stopped? We'll start with that.
I did 3 years in Spain, and I had signed a contract to go back a fourth year, and I broke the contract in June because I didn't want to go back. That was the season. COVID had my third year in Spain. COVID ended our year early, and I resigned to go back to the same team for the next year. I went home during COVID, and I thought there's no way I could get back on a plane. So.
Is now how do you come to a decision like, because when you, of course, if you say I'm going to break my contract, I'm going to stay in the States, you ended up getting a coaching job. How do you come to that realization, and does it hurt when you say, okay, I'm done? Because you weren't thinking, oh, in a couple of years I'm going to end up going back. You were thinking right at that moment that you were done.
I was thinking retirement. Right. Yeah.
So first of all, does it hurt when you realize, okay, that's it? And secondly, what made it click that you were like, okay, no, this is going to be it?
I think the hurt had happened my third year overseas. It was a really tough year. Mentally, I struggled, and it was probably one of the more isolated years I had felt over there. You know how that can be, where some situations just don't seem to be as fulfilling as you might have thought they would be. And that's not an invitation or a knock at my teammates. They were wonderful. Our coach was great. The city was amazing. It's just, I don't think I was in a place to be there truly mentally. And so when I went home, I just thought like, God, I can actually not think about going back to play anywhere. So I retired. But I think it made it a little bit easier because at that time there was a coaching spot opening at Green Bay. And it was always my dream to get into college athletics. And so I think that the next step in that perspective was so exciting that I was already focused on the next chapter. Right. So I think that like, I didn't go through that mourning period, for lack of a better. I think I was just like so excited to look forward. So where I actually got to know Taylor Wirtz is a summer professional semi-pro team in Wisconsin called the Wisconsin Glow, and you'll have the likes of like Julie Whita from Weebov and Joe Anderson and Taylor Wirtz and myself, and so we all played on that, and our coaching staff allowed me to play after that first year coaching, and use it as marketing. Look, our assistant coach still plays, can teach, can demo, you know how that is. And so I went down and played the first game on an off weekend when I didn't have to go recruit. And I called them. My parents were at the game, and I went up and I said, "Oh, I don't know if I'm done." I think it was like the worst thing possible. That I was like, "Oh, this is not good." And so I kind of sat on that decision for all of summer. I think our first game was in like May, and in August, I resigned at Green Bay to go back overseas. And within 2 weeks, I was back over. So I waited on that decision to make sure it wasn't emotional and it wasn't a rash decision. But I think being home, and Green Bay is like an hour 45 from my family. So I was able to be home with my loved ones and my people.
You got to regroup.
I was able to regroup, and it has been the best thing for my career. And I've just been like, I can't get enough of basketball right now. So for the last 3 years, I've been playing nonstop, and it's been the best thing for me personally. But I needed that year off drastically. I did have to pay out of that contract though.
You had to pay out of your Spanish contract or your Green Bay?
And I was replaced within the day, but Spain made me pay out. So there's a part of me that thinks that agent might have taken a cut, and that because I was retiring, it was technically, but at that point, I didn't want to do a FIBA lawsuit and all those things because you don't know how that's going to go. So that left me a little on that.
Okay. Wait, I got you again. Yeah, I got you.
There we go.
So you were 1 year in coaching, D1 level. That's a dream job for a lot of people. Was that difficult for you to walk away from? You're at your alma mater. You are right. That was your alma mater.
With the coach I had played.
Wow. And then like the basketball Jones hits you again. Did anybody think like, hey, she is absolutely bonkers?
Yeah, but that decision was made long. No, I'm just kidding. This is right on par for me. No, I don't think so. I think if you ask even like the girls that I was coaching at the time, it was COVID year, so I was the one in practice with them, and I was still playing with them, and they would actually come watch the games, and so I don't think that it would be surprising to anyone that I had wanted to go back. The experience is invaluable, and you're right. Was that my shot at college athletics? It very much could have been, and our coach retired this year, so who knows? But I'm a firm believer in doing things the right way, and with the help of a certain man upstairs, something will happen, and it might not be college athletics, and I'm kind of at peace with that. Obviously, I would love to stay in the basketball world, but yeah, it probably looked like I was a little unstable for a little bit. Which, looking back, it was the best decision I've made, and
no regret.
Regretted it or second guessed it once. But at the time, I'm sure people were like, "What is going on with her?" Absolutely.
So now you're back to playing, and is there a big difference between basketball in Europe as opposed to basketball in Australia?
Oh, good question. I think on a couple different levels, yes. I think like in Spain, the style is more fluid, it's faster, and it's a different type of physicality. In Australia, I think some of the differences is like there's a collective bargaining agreement, and it's treated as a pretty professional league, and there's things in place that give you more security down there, and you know, there's a little bit more legality things that play in the player's favor, which is awesome. It's a physical league. It's, I mean, highly reputable league. I kind of err on the side of, I've done the Europe thing. Obviously, like maybe one day I do go back, but being in Australia in an English speaking country where there's not this huge culture shock, it just makes the day-to-day life so easy. And not to mention it's a summer down there during that time. So I'm not getting that European darkness and that seasonal depression. And so there's a lot of things outside of basketball world that really plays into that.
Right. And how long can you imagine playing until the wheels fall off, or you kind of have a plan like, okay, I have my exit plan. You don't have to tell your exit plan.
No,
but
I have the thing about my career is, as you can see that we've established in the last 5 minutes talking, is every time I have a plan, you can probably guarantee I'm going to do the exact opposite of what I think I'm going to do. I think we've actually had this conversation with a few people over the last couple of days of, I think when there's such a different mindset. Like I'm in the States and everyone's asking me like, oh God, you're almost 30, which is not old, but like you're almost 30. Like when are you going to come back? And overseas, whether it's Europe or Australia, there's so many more like women in sport that I can look up to that are older, that have families, that have children. And so like, for example, that have done it and that are still doing it. So for example, like overseas, they'll be like, oh, you're turning 30. God, you're so young. And so the mindset is completely flipped. Like if you'd asked me before this, I'd be like, I don't know, I'm just playing to have fun and continue and push my boundaries a little bit. And now I'm like, well, as long as I'm healthy, I'm going to keep going. And so obviously this is where the luck comes in, and am I able to avoid injury, and am I able to continue to pick up contracts? But I mean, I played with girls on my team that were 7, 8, 9, 10 years older that had kids. And so it's not foreign now to look above me and see that there are women still playing at those older ages, if you will. I don't know. So it's been really good to be overseas and see that a woman's career doesn't have to end at 26, 27 anymore. Like you can still push. And right now I fully intend to.
I want to follow up on something you said about turning 30, and for a man, nobody tells a man, oh, you're turning 30. It's about time for you to bring it on home. Why? I mean, of course, we understand the differences between a man and woman, but do you get those outside influences that try to tell you, hey, yeah, you need to start thinking about settling down, kids, when no one would say that to a man? Like that double standard.
I think it's because your careers and your family can run parallel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like mine cannot as much. I mean, I know there's other ways, but like realistically, I have to take time off if I want that in my future, which maybe that's the case. Who knows? I don't feel any type of pressure.
Good.
I mean, my family, my dad was a pro athlete. My mom was married to him at the time. My sister was a pro athlete. Like in our family, not that it's not a flex to say it's the standard, but it's like absolutely go chase your passions. Everyday life will always be there when you want to. And it might look a little non-traditional than what it might look like to the average family that at my age has 2.5 kids and a dog and a white picket fence. Great, that's great. Maybe I'm 40, single, and have to adopt. I don't know, but like at this point, I'm happy with what I'm doing. My family full-heartedly supports me, and quite frankly, that's good enough for me.
Good. So I've got 2 more questions, and I'm gonna let you get out of here. What advice, looking back and knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself right before you're getting on the plane to go overseas the first time?
Now, I would say, I wouldn't give this advice to myself because I think I did this, but I would give it to other people going overseas. And only because like I had Julie White, I mean, I know I've said her name a lot, but she couldn't have been more of a help to me going over. And I had a lot of other friends at that point that were playing overseas that really like kind of paved the way for me. But I would say like drop your ego immediately. Like immerse yourself in their culture. Don't be the arrogant American that steps off the plane, and understand that it is not college basketball anymore.
That's over. That's
doing your laundry for the most part. Yep.
Yeah.
No, you're doing your own laundry.
Yeah.
You might not even have practice gear. You're on the bus. There's no more charter flights. You're on the bus for 14 hours sometimes. Like this, the quicker you can get rid of the idea that this is college 2.0 and this like
Right.
glamorous professional life, fine. But if you, the better. But if you can immerse yourself in the day to day, like enjoy the culture, get to know your teammates, like not stay in your room and play video games all day.
Right.
Unless you love that, that's great. And if that works for you, awesome. But I found that every time I'm the happiest, playing the best, and fulfilled overseas, it's when I'm immersed in doing things and out in the community and hanging out with teammates and doing whatever their traditional norms are. And I think part of that is immediately drop that ego.
Mm-hmm. So you basically trashed my last question, so I have to think about one more because I was going to ask you. No, I can ask a different version of it. Okay. Of course, there's a lot more jobs overseas. There's a lot more
Sorry,
jobs
can you
overseas.
repeat that? I lost
Yeah.
you for a
Can you
little
hear
bit.
me now?
Yep.
Okay. So of course, there's a lot more jobs for men overseas than for women. So the competition level is really intense for better paying jobs. Of course, WNBA girls, they get the lion's share of the high paid jobs. But what advice do you have for someone, for a woman that wants to play overseas? Let's say she does
Ask a
not
lot
have
of
an agent.
questions.
Huh?
Well, first of all, get an agent. First of all, grab an
Okay.
agent.
What
And
about
at
if
some
she has
point,
no agent?
you have to find an agent. I don't know if you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can.
Okay.
Otherwise,
You can?
I would start sending, I mean, it's almost like that college recruiting again. I would start sending your video out. I would start DMing coaches. I would cut my own highlight film or send full games over that were good, and I would start sending them out myself. I would reach out to players if you have connections to people that play overseas.
Good point.
Because I can't tell you actually how many times that someone's gone down. I'm like, I have a player that's ready to come over.
Yeah.
And if your name carries any weight overseas, a lot of coaches will go by a player's word.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I would maintain connections over there. I'm not familiar with those tours that people run. I've seen those happen a couple times where people will pay a certain amount. I'm not familiar with that, so I don't think I can give you an educated opinion on that. But try to hire an agent, do some DMing, keep working out, because there's a lot of other leagues. You know, you've got your Mexico Summer League, you've got your Australia, that NBL one pathway that seems to be good to get some professional experience.
Right.
And you always have the opportunity. I know some of the London goes, you know, you can go study and play, or, you know, there's other ways.
A lot of in the UK that's prevalent. Yeah.
Yep. And maybe financially you're going to have to take some hits, but I suppose as soon as you can get your feet in Europe, you're going to be set to go in some way.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you very. I'm not really proud of that. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. Now comes the part where you have to give a suggestion or a recommendation for someone that you think might be a good fit here, and you also have to hit that person up, because if I hit them up, they're gonna be like, "Who the hell is this?" So you're gonna have to hit them up and say, "Hey, this guy's probably gonna hit you up. Don't think he's an idiot." So who would you suggest to come on?
I would either say probably Jessica Lindstrom or Ellen Nystrom.
Okay.
I don't know.
You got to narrow it down. You got to narrow it down. I can only write one person. I could write
maybe
two,
I'll do Ellen Nystrom.
Okay.
Nystrom.
So now you're gonna hit up. You're gonna hit up Ellen.
I'll do Ellen a text.
And you're gonna.
I'll send her Instagram profile.
You're gonna send me her Instagram. Yeah, thank you very much. And then I will try to get her on the show at some point. I really want to say thank you so much, because I know it's not always. I'm sure, especially as a woman too, you get hit on a lot, and people hit you up and want you to do stuff, and then it turns out not to be. I think women have to be a lot more careful than men.
But you're right. It's always better when it comes from a recommendation of someone you know.
Right.
Yeah, I got
right.
You.
So
I like it. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you coming on. You dropped some real gems. I see somebody already wrote in the comments that they were appreciative of what you the knowledge that you dropped. So that's really why I do this, to make sure that people get information from various people, that because I say a lot in what I do, but sometimes you have to hear from someone else. And I don't have a huge women's following, so for me, it's also really good when I can have a woman on that can tell it from a woman's point of view. Of course, I know it is from a man's point of view, but as a woman, I of course don't know. So for that, I am very grateful for you coming on and dropping some knowledge, and I wish you all the best. Whatever way your career ends up, whichever way you decide to go, if you're still playing at 40 or if you're coaching D1 when you're 41, it doesn't matter as long as you're happy. And I really appreciate you taking the time out and coming on.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're doing things people need to hear.
Thank you. I do my best. I do my best. Thank you. So get out of here. So,
all right,
teammates, that's
we'll
it. That's it for today. I'm very, very pleased to have her to have had her on, and she really dropped some good points that I had actually never thought about. And yeah, I think I'll take about a week off or so, and then I'll be back with a new guest. But thank you to any of you that watched for 1 minute or for the whole 36 minutes that we've been on. And I hope you end up tuning in another time. That's it for me. Old Head is about to get out of here. Have a good one.